Hey everyone, Troy Harris here, and welcome to module number 12 of our Crypto New Rich program, Emotional Intelligence for Success. Now, you would have seen if you watched the previous module, module number 11, Vision and Goals, that this is the second part of our video series, which is more so focusing on the mindset required to be part of the Crypto New Rich. Obviously, the first 10 videos of our series is around the technical side, I guess you could call it, or the side that you need to know and understand to be able to purchase and hold and safely secure your Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and have it in your portfolio, etc. But these final five modules, in my opinion, like I said in the previous module, in my opinion, are far more important than the first 10, even though in the first 10, obviously, I'm teaching how to do the process of buying and holding and securing, storing Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. These five final videos, and once again, by no means do I consider myself an expert in the mindset space, but I'm just sharing this information on what's worked for me over my journey, and how my wealth has drastically increased since applying some of these very simple steps that you can do with your mindset. And as I said, this is a follow-on from the previous module, and this one is around emotional intelligence for success. Now, if you are someone new to the investing space, a newbie, and you're probably here listening to these videos and thinking, well, this is all great, Troy, but my mindset is completely fine. Therefore, you may not have had any setbacks or potential massive failures happen so far in your investing career. And you're probably thinking, well, I just want some tactics, right? And a lot of the times when we're new to this investing space, we just want it all right now. But as I've said plenty of times, and I'll say it again now, you'll notice that these are not actually the things that create freedom and your dream life by design, because sometimes what we want and what we need are two completely different things. And that's what we're going to share with you more as well within this module. So the first big one here that I want to continue on, I guess we could say, is working harder on yourself. Okay. As this quote here, very eloquently put by Jim Rohn, says, income seldom exceeds personal development. And once again, I'd like to think that, the fact that you're here and watching, you've invested your money and your time to learn about the Crypto New Rich and watch these videos. I'd like to think that you understand that personal development and learning and knowing about this space around mindset is incredibly important. But this particular part of working harder on yourself and consistently trying to improve yourself with all the 1%ers every single day. This is something that I learned many years ago, and I've never forgot it, and it literally has changed my life forever. Right, working harder on yourself than you do on your business or that you do in your job. If you work hard in your job or your business, you'll make a living, right? If you work hard on yourself, though, you will make a fortune. All right, and that is something that I picked up a while ago, and ever since I've fully committed and focused on that. I really can't recommend that anymore. And let me repeat that again. If you work hard on your job or your business, you're going to make enough to make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you will make enough to make a fortune. Okay. When you do both things, that's when things really seem to change, right? And we bring ourselves to the deal, as they say. Now I'm making effort to take time out in my days where I can, whenever I can, to consistently learn. Now, whether that is reading more books, listening to podcasts of things that I haven't learned or understand or heard before. If I go somewhere in the car, I enjoy music more, but I'll force myself to listen to an audio book now, at least one of the ways. People who know me closely know I'm a massive music fan. I love my music, but I'm now forcing myself to learn in every available second that I have. And I've made a dedication that over times where I may be relaxing, I'm doing so with a book in my hand or with an audio book or a podcast in my ears, and consistently trying to improve and do all those one percenters, and consistently trying to work harder on myself, because as Jim Rohn quite expertly says here, income seldom exceeds personal development. So what is a quick definition of emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence, so EI or EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions, as well as the ability to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. Okay. So emotional intelligence is a greater influence on success than intellectual intelligence. So as Travis Bradbury and Gene Graves explained here in Emotional Intelligence 2.0, of all the people we have studied at work, we have found that 90% of high performers are also high in EQ, right? Also high in emotional intelligence, right? So there's been multiple studies on this, right? People with similar IQs, by 40s or 50s as a general rule, those that could, as a child, regulate their frustrations, their emotions, and have good, effective communication with others, right, are also more likely to have successful relationships, right? And this is something where it's extremely important to know and understand that your emotional intelligence is something that is so crucial and so key to your success. Because the quality of life and the emotions within, okay, what does that stand for? Well, the quality of your life is not what is happening to you, it's the quality of your emotions. And this is something that Tony Robbins says. Okay, so let me repeat that. The quality of your life is not what is happening to you, it's the quality of your emotions. So, for example, if you're rich but you're angry and you're tired and you're stressed, is that a good life, right? If you're poor but you're happy and you're appreciative and you're fun loving, well, that is a good life, right? So a lot of the time people will completely link money to whether they're happy or whether they're not, right? So I've met people who are in both categories, extremely rich, beyond wealth, but are consistently angry, tired, and stressed out. Is that really a good life? Absolutely not. But I've met a lot of people that are just getting by, but are so happy and appreciative and fun loving of what they have. That is a true life. To have an extraordinary life, all that means is you are going to have a life where the primary emotions are the ones that you want. It doesn't mean that life will always be easy, and you control what it means to you. That's the thing, right? So it doesn't mean life will always be easy. You control what it means to you. It's not where you live physically, but it's where you live internally. Now, you can be extremely successful, but be living negatively, experiencing disempowering emotions, and you'll not be happy or fulfilled at all. So here are 8 things that we can focus on to improve emotional intelligence for our investing journey. Okay, now we don't want to just talk about emotional intelligence theory. We want to think about what can we put in practice to make ourselves exceptional at this. We want to win this game and win the game of life. That's what we want to do. So let's talk about number 1. removing all emotion from our investing. All right. So logic and strategy for decisions, not emotions. This absolutely requires higher emotional intelligence because quite often, right, if you get upset when the market goes down, but you've bought at a higher amount, then obviously you're going to lose, right? So this is what we call smart money and dumb money, right? And I talk about this in the book, and I've spoke about this in detail before. If you are letting your emotions control your investing, then what you are going to do is, and it's people who are checking the markets every day and they're logging in and they're freaking out every time Bitcoin or crypto moves a certain dollar or a certain move. Every single time they're checking and checking and worrying. I often say to those people, you need to do the sleep test. The sleep test is that if you can go to sleep and sleep completely fine and not wake up in a sweat, freaking out and worrying about your investments that you have, then your position is fine. But if you're waking up all the time and freaking out about it, then you either have too much money invested in the market, or you quite simply have way too much emotion in your investing. You need to have logic and strategy for your decisions, not for emotions. Now, especially in downward markets, when we experience bear markets in crypto and we experience severe downturn in crypto, quite often what can happen is that we let our emotions take control, we freak out, and that's what dumb money does. Dumb money sells at a lower price than what they purchased in for. Now, we all know, especially with Bitcoin, that if you purchase and you dollar cost average over time, then quite simply, it's just a time and patience thing until the price of Bitcoin goes up against the dollar, against the yen, against the euro, against whatever government issued currency it is. So we need to be removing all our emotions from our investing. So the second one is identifying, being aware, and catching our emotions. Okay. Now you're probably wondering why there's a picture of a monkey on this slide, and I'm going to use the term monkey mind, right? And it's a word it literally means heart, mind, monkey, right? It's a Buddhist concept that describes a state of restlessness and lack of control in one's thoughts, right? And that is something where we need to be able to be aware and identify when those things happen, right? We need to catch those emotions because we manage what we can measure. So most people don't think anything of it and just think that, oh, it's just something that happens. Well, absolutely, it's not. You need to become aware of when those states of restlessness are happening and be able to catch those emotions, identify them, right? Because quite often there are the parts that are going to lead to a downfall, whether that be financially or whatever it is. Okay, so being aware of that restlessness. One of the big things I always say to people is that if you're tired or you just feel too overwhelmed, don't switch the computer on. Don't check the price of your investments and see where it's at. Just give it a miss for that day, right? You don't need to be logging on there every single minute of the day and checking where the prices of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is. If you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or restless, don't switch it on. Don't do it. Don't get involved. Okay. Just identify and be aware and catch those emotions. We need to control our emotional intelligence waves. Okay. Avoid the upset and the unhappy, right? And I shared this in the book as well, right? Our emotional intelligence waves, right? So this is what less successful entrepreneurs do, right? They're on this consistent wave of upset, unhappy, calm, happy, upset, unhappy, calm, happy, right? Consistently up and down, up and down. It's higher, much more higher frequency of movement, right? And if you get upset, when the market goes down, then obviously what's going to happen is that you're going to lose, right? And this happens so often in downturns of markets. But this is what more successful entrepreneurs do, right? They are consistently moving between the calm and satisfied state, right? Because they're being aware, they're being aware of the emotions, and they're catching when they're restless, right? They're not logging on when they're tired or they're overstimulated, or maybe you're too hungry or you're thirsty or whatever it may be. If you've got some things that make you restless, then don't be in the zone and don't be entering into this world while you're like that, right? It's no different to when people say, never drive when you're stressed, or when you're feeling tired or overworked or anything like that, because there's much more of a chance of you having an accident. And the same thing applies to investing. If you're stressed and you're overtired or you're overstimulated or whatever, then you're much more likely to cause an accident within your portfolio, shall we say. Number 4, self-regulation. Okay. You need to pause, be calm before you react, right? So pause before reacting. Have you ever heard the saying before, never send an email when you're angry, right? Or never send a text message when you're angry. Always leave it in your drafts, in your drafts folder, and wait till the next day once you calm down. And then 99.99% of the time, people who read the email the next day go, wow, I'm glad I didn't send that email, right? You need to be pause and think before reacting. Take a moment before responding, especially when something triggers you, right? Especially when the market's moving violently. We need to stay calm under pressure. Practice stress reducing techniques, okay? There's multiple different techniques around breathing and those kinds of things that you can do as well. Don't pass on your stress to others, right? The more I study and learn communication, the more I learn the power of pauses before speaking and just how powerful that is. So I've been working on doing this with my speaking as well, and not saying so much, but taking more in before adding input. Okay. Don't be in such a rush to jump straight back, right? Every time something is said, jumping straight in, or reacting to something, right? Everyone does that. Everyone's so ready to jump in 2 feet first and ready to pounce back at something that may have been said. Take a minute and pause, be calm before you do any reaction. All right. If you think of a wise old man or an old woman or a character in a movie, right? What are they? They are calm, they're methodical, they're poised. Okay. And that is where you can consistently be practicing self-regulation. Now, number 5 is applying logic and avoiding FOMO in bull markets. So just to be clear again, what FOMO is. FOMO stands for fear of missing out. All right. So we want to be applying logic and avoiding the fear of missing out in bull markets, right? Don't get caught up in the emotion of it all. Because when you're in your first bull market, or maybe it's not your first bull market, maybe it's your second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it may be, it's still very easy to get caught up in the emotion of it all. When everything is green, when everything is going up, when prices are exploding, right? There is always the emotions that get caught on of, what if I just hold this? It's always going to go up. It's never going to stop going up. And that's absolutely not the case, because everything that goes up must come down, right? It always has a correction. Logic is always better than emotions when it comes to investing. Okay. So as the price is shooting up, don't get that fear of missing out and be consistently keep getting into the market thinking it's just going to keep going up, because it's quite simply not the case. So the same way we need to apply logic, and the same way that we need to apply the same mindset when the market is dropping in bear markets considerably, is the same mental fortitude that you need to have when the markets are increasing significantly. All right. It's the exact same mental attitude that you need to have. Managing your emotions in bull market conditions. Now, this is what a professional does, right? Once I have hit my goal levels, I am out. All right. So I have certain goals, I have certain points that I want to get to. And once I've hit those levels, I'm out. That's what a professional does. And what an amateur does is they say, I'm holding here because this could keep going much higher yet, right? Instead of being happy with the profits that they got. Someone very smart once told me, Troy, you don't go broke taking profits. And I think that is 100% true, right? Be happy and be satisfied with the profits that you got from the bull market, okay? Be happy and satisfied with it. Don't think that you can, if you're going to keep holding, it's going to keep going up. Absolutely not. Because as I said before, what goes up must come down, all right? And this is so incredibly important to realize and know and understand. And obviously, this is great that you are with us in the Crypto New Rich community, which means that you're going to have the ability to be able to follow us and get my updates on when I feel that we are reaching near of what I feel is the top of the bull market, if this is the first bull market that you're experiencing. Number 6, we need to zoom out and avoid emotions causing realized losses in market corrections. So what I'm saying here is that, yes, we are expecting, to be moving into a incredible bull market phase. And yes, when that happens, it can be very exciting. But what can also happen is that as we move into bull market phases, we can have extreme market corrections of 30, 40, 50, 70% sometimes, right? This is absolutely possible in Bitcoin and crypto, and it's happened before. But what we need to do is we need to zoom out. And by zoom out, what I mean is don't focus on the hourly or the daily price of Bitcoin. Focus on the monthly price of Bitcoin or the yearly price of Bitcoin, and realize that when we zoom out, these market corrections that happen over the periods of days or weeks or maybe even a month, they mean absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scale of Bitcoin going up, the corrections that it has, that it's done a 60, 70, 80% correction, it means nothing, because at the end of the day, the price is still going to go up against your government issued currency. All right. So don't get caught up in the emotion of when we have extreme market corrections, because what will happen then, you're going to get caught up in the emotion. It's going to cause you actual realized losses, because you're going to be thinking that, oh my goodness, this market started to go up and now it's had an extreme dip. I'm going to get out even though I've selling for less than what I bought for. You need to be playing the long game, right? Logic is always better than emotion when it comes to investing. All right. Logic every single day over emotion. We need to be managing your emotions in bear market conditions. What does a professional do? Well, when there's a market correction, this is what a professional does. They say, well, market corrections are normal. I'm just going to stick with my plan, right? The correction has happened. It's moved down. Yes, I may have purchased up here. The correction has happened, but I'm confident in Bitcoin and what it is, and I'm just going to hold. What does an amateur do? Well, if it keeps dropping, I'm getting out. What's going to happen? Guaranteed it's going to keep dropping. End up selling for a loss at the bottom, even though they bought in up here. And then the correction finishes after a week or two and it starts shooting up again. I've seen this happen over and over and time again to multiple different people. And it's always the same result. It's always amateurs. It's always people who haven't been through it before. So if you haven't been through it before, I hope that just one of you, right? Just one of you understand and heed what I'm saying, because this really depends, obviously, first, if it's a full bear market or just a market correction. But if we're in a bull market and we're moving in an upwards direction, quite often there's a market correction. But if the market will turn around over time, right, it's quite often better to just hold on and just ride it back up, okay? Whereas what a lot of people do, they'll sell at a loss because they have no long-term vision or goal, right? for whatever reason, they were in it for a quick dollar, right? They were in it for a quick buck in crypto. And so therefore they never had a long-term vision or a long-term goal. And then what ends up happening? The market drops considerably, they end up selling, and they end up getting at a very, very large loss. We need to always, right, always be zooming out for perspective. So once again, if we look at a short-term focus or an amateur investor's focus, an amateur investor is stressed that Bitcoin is down this week. But if we zoom out and look at it as a professional investor, the professional investor with a long-term plan understands and is not stressed by temporary market corrections, right? It's not stressed that Bitcoin's gone down this week. It doesn't matter that Bitcoin's gone down this week because this person has seen out multiple cycles and multiple moves in Bitcoin and knows that Bitcoin quite often has corrections, right? But ultimately, if they zoom out and you look at the monthly or the yearly chart of Bitcoin, you will see that Bitcoin consistently goes up. Yes, it has corrections, but consistently it goes up against government-issued currency. Remember, we looked at this one before, but it's so relevant. I just wanted to repeat it because it's such an important thing to realize and understand, right? A professional investor with a long-term plan, they understand and they're not stressed by temporary market conditions. So like I said, turn off your phone. You don't have to be looking at the Bitcoin price every hour or every minute or every day. It's just, you don't need to be, okay? If you've got a long-term focus, a long-term vision, a long-term goal, then you don't need to be looking at it every minute of the day. Number 7, you need to take ownership of all your decisions and avoid any of the blame game. You need to be saying these words to yourself. I am 100% responsible for my own actions. Okay? The market does not care about you or your feelings. Let me say that again. The market does not care about you or your feelings. The actions that you take and the things that you do, you need to be 100% responsible for your own actions. You need to go put your big boy or your big girl pants on, all right? And obviously, as we go along this journey, I'll obviously try and help you get it right. But ultimately, there's no one here else to blame but yourself, okay? We're all adults here. We're all making decisions. We're all taking ownership of our own decisions, and we're avoiding any of the blame game, right? I'm showing you an exponential game, right? I'm showing you a game that can be exponential and has the potential to drastically improve your wealth and your lifestyle. But I'm not responsible for your results and your actions. You're responsible for them, right? Ultimately, you need to stop the blame game on anyone because ultimately no one is there forcing you to do anything. Okay. So if it's myself or anyone else, we're coaches, we're people that have been through these experiences, we're providing information, insights, and guidance, right? But what happens beyond that is all on you, okay? What the team does on the field is beyond the coach's control. So the coach can go out there and give direction and give advice and kind of give, the general rules of what he expects and the best way to get a result. But ultimately, it's up to the team to go out there and perform. And the team, which is you are 100% responsible for your own actions. All right. And the day that you start getting your big boy or big girl pants on and realize that, whether that's in investing or trading or business or anything in your life, and you take ownership for all those decisions, is the day that you will ultimately, right, avoid that blame game and ultimately continue to grow and learn, right? And learn because sometimes mistakes are going to happen. Failures are going to happen. You got to get back up and go again. And number 8, we need to master fear. And don't let fear hold you back from decisions and from taking action. Fear is the number one thing that holds people back. Okay. Now there's 2 core factors of fear. Love is the oxygen of the soul, right? It's very beneficial to figure out what your greatest fears are, okay? Then figure out if those fears have given you any benefits in the past. Like, so example, a fear of bad health could keep you healthier, right? Then figure out why, be free of this fear now. So for an example, you get what you need to focus on, right? You understand and you can master what you need to focus on. So you need to master that fear and don't let it hold you back from decisions and from taking action. All right. You need to figure out what those greatest fears are and you need to face them head on, right? Because once again, you are responsible, 100% responsible for your own actions. Now, this is not just something that you can look over and watch over and listen to and read about and change overnight. Absolutely, this is not the case whatsoever. This is something that you need to work on, and it's going to take time. You need to give yourself permission, especially if you are a beginner in this investing or business journey or whatever it is that you may be doing. You need to give yourself permission to be a beginner and to learn, okay? But you need to master that fear and you need to face it head on, okay? Don't let it hold you back from the decisions that you want to make and the action that you need to take. So that now leads us to the end of this module. And in the next module, we will start to build on top of this and start getting what I like to call a millionaire mindset. Okay, this is when we can start putting things in place to really start having a millionaire mindset. All right. So once again, I want to thank everyone for the kind comments and kind words. Thank you so much. Of course, you can always reach out to our team at support@fastlaunchddigital.com if you have any questions or anything at all. Other than that, I will see you in the next module, Millionaire Mindset.